What's happening, people? I go by the name of DJ Snips, London DJ and producer. Having been a part of the hip hop scene in both the US and the UK over the past few years, I've come up with several observations about how hip hop fans like to attach themselves to very specific social groups. So what I'm going to do today is outline 6 specific groups in which I think that most hip hop fans can kind of identify with or like to place themselves among. You may agree, you may not. Feel free to tweet me at DJ Snips, whether you do or you don't. And don't forget to hashtag subject to the day, which is hip hop tribes. Right, so category number 1, we're gonna start with the hipster. Now, for those that don't understand what a hipster is, the best way to describe it is the hipster is the person that he was up on everything 2 years before you were. And when you got up on it, he didn't like it anymore. That's the hipster. So let's say his favorite rappers are the rappers you only find on very, very exclusive blogs. And by the time that rapper moves from that blog into the mainstream, hipster doesn't like him anymore. How does he dress? You might find him in skate brands, or you might find him in retro brands. Bear in mind, if he's in skate brands, more than likely he's probably never ridden a skateboard. If he's in old school retro clothing, starter jackets, Jordans, kind of late 80s, early 90s, the kind of shit that Big Daddy Kane, Slick Rick, etc. were wearing, bear in mind he's probably never listened to a Big Daddy Kane or a Slick Rick album. That's the hipster. Ironic tattoos, possibly. Irony is obviously a massive part of hipster culture. You know, for example, if you're very middle class, which a lot of hipsters are, might embrace part of the culture that is completely foreign to you. So you may see a suburban middle class white kid with a teardrop tattoo and gold grills. You know, it's ironic, it's what they embrace. Quite often you might find a lot of the industry, a lot of the people that actually work behind the scenes are from this culture. So a lot of the bloggers, everybody's got a profession that's nothing to do with how they actually earn their money. So a classic one for a hipster fan would be works in a coffee shop by day, but by night is a blogger, or works in a call center by day, or in his spare time he does music management for artists that you've never heard of because they're too cool to be, signed to a label or in the public eye in any kind of way. That's the hipster. Category number 2. We're gonna go with the road rap fan, the trap rap fan. My American watchers, the street music fan. Now, it's slightly different. We've got several types of road rap fan. We're going to start with the aspiring hustler. Now, you must bear in mind, the aspiring hustler is not the same as an actual hustler. It's an aspiring hustler. He hasn't made it yet. The whole soundtrack of road rap, street rap, trap rap, whatever, it helps him create this facade in his mind that he can aspire to. Now, how do you identify the road rap aspiring hustler fan? I would say dress sense. Normally a lot of designer clothes. Are they real? Maybe, maybe not. A lot of Gucci, possibly jewelry. Again, is it real? Is it not? It's hard to tell. More than likely still lives at home with his mum. May or may not have a car. But generally is, he's living the dream, or he appears to be living the dream. Now, on top of that, we've got the polar opposite of the aspiring hustler. We've got the similar to the hipster here. You've got the middle class kid who's trying to fight against the natural background that he comes from. So the way to do that is obviously try and be as different as possible as where you come from. So you've definitely got an aspect of middle class kid within the road rap scene. Maybe even somebody who might have even been bullied at school. He might have been that kid that you remember at school that didn't say much. People might have taken his lunch money. He got to the point where he couldn't take it anymore. So what did he do? He embraced a culture that was aggressive, that was fierce. He embodied that, and it was his stamp to kind of fight against exactly what he'd been penalised for. On top of that, and this kind of fits into the same category of trying to fight against what you are, you've also got the intellectual. Now, the intellectual is gonna bring me on to my next category. But what you find is you've got the guy that grew up listening to Nas, or he grew up listening to, intelligent rap, and he got tired of being victimized for liking intelligent music. So in order to combat that, he went as far the other way as possible. So he's the type of guy that will tell you, Waka Flocka's the most lyrical guy in the world, and you don't want to hear anything that invokes any type of thought whatsoever. Which brings me on to the next topic, the underground, formerly known as the backpack rap fan. So very closely linked there, because more than likely the street rap fan who used to be the intellectual used to be this guy, and he's now moved on to greener pastures, as it were. So the underground backpack rap fan, who is he? One thing he's got in common with the hipster is elitism. He's definitely an elitist. He wants to be into things that nobody else is into. He cares a lot more about the culture. He's into lyrics. So if he's into lyrics, you might also find he's into battle rap. Now the thing with battle rap, the underground rap fan is an avid follower of URL World or the Don't Flop World, but quite possibly doesn't actually listen to rap music at all. So it's a very kind of like cut off subculture within underground rap music. He's heavy on the internet. It's not a forum that the underground backpacker does not frequent. He's somewhat of a self-proclaimed nerd a lot of the time, and that doesn't make it a bad thing. It's self-proclaimed. It's not what other people are claiming. He doesn't like his music to be diluted. Any R&B vocals, singing on the chorus, it's not real rap music. He doesn't like it. The underground backpack fan is quite closely linked with the next category, which is the conscious fan. Now, you've got two types of conscious fans. The genuinely intelligent conscious fan, who possibly somewhat of an activist. He's a fan of artists like More Technique, Low Key, genuinely embraces hip hop music as a way to help, whether it's better the community or help to enlighten people. Take my hats off to those people. A genuine activist. Now on top of that, you've got the other side of conscious, who is the YouTube activist. You know the guy, he thinks Jay-Z's the devil. He thinks any artist that sells more than 100 copies of their record must have been involved in some sort of human sacrifice somewhere. He may have come from the aspiring hustler. After that didn't work out, he realized at 30 years old he wasn't going to get a job. Might have spent a couple of years in prison because the hustling didn't work out. He's then become a YouTube activist, because the reason nothing worked out for him is because there was a massive conspiracy within the government holding back. Jay-Z's sending messages into his brain. His ex-favorite artists, he found out that they all got to where they got to because of some sort of like human and goat sacrifice on a like abandoned hill somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Who knows? He might have come from there to get to the YouTube activist. Now the YouTube activist is not to be confused with the actual activist who actually takes action, hence the term activist. The YouTube activist is someone that smokes a lot of weed, sits at home, watches YouTube, doesn't ever actually read up on what it is he's being taught, just takes it, on face value. So on top of that, you've actually got, and this is, as I said, not to be confused with the aspiring hustler. Quite often, like I said, only in my experience, you've got the actual hustler, the actual successful hustler. More times, has had to have been quite an intelligent person to be successful at such a profession, and quite often doesn't generally agree with the road rap artist who's glorified a massive section of his lifestyle, and can quite often relate to the conscious rapper who's got a little bit more to talk about. You've got the militant white kid. The guy that goes to the Dead Press shows, back in the day was Public Enemy. Nothing in music at all whatsoever relates to his life or struggle, but somehow he's embraced it and he wants to fight for that cause. He might not understand the cause, but he wants to fight for the cause. He loves the music, he's down for the cause. The militant white king. So my next category is almost post-underground and conscious, and that is the old school. Now, the old school doesn't necessarily have to equate to older people. No. Older people is definitely one part of the old school. But where I'm now going to link the hipster world with the old school is the younger people. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're into old school music. As I've said before, the skate, the retro, it's very trendy to be into old shit, basically. You know, hipsters, they go to old school waves. Recently, we had the anniversary of B.I.G.'s death. There was Biggie tribute parties all over London, frequented by a lot of 19-year-old hipster kids who they had no idea of the music that was being played, other than More Money, More Problems, and they remember seeing on the box when they were 6 years old. But they like the idea of old school. They dress old school. They talk old school. They act old school. They've never listened to a Slick Rick album. That's the younger people. Now, the older people in the old school world have generally come from one of these two categories here. The underground fan, the conscious fan. Mainly because back in the day, they didn't really have a hipster category. Road rap category, the street element of hip hop has always been a part of hip hop, a massively integral part of hip hop. It was never kind of sectioned off as a specific genre of itself. It was always just part of hip hop. So more time, conscious underground, they've ended up in the old school world. Now, as much as everybody here has somewhat of a love of old school music because it birthed everything, the old school doesn't have a love for everybody else. So generally, the old school hates everybody else because nothing's as good as it used to be. Massive amounts of hate from the old school to everybody else. Unless you've got the older person who's ashamed of their age and wants to embrace the new school. So it's extreme. Either they hate everybody or they really, really want to attach themselves to one of the other two here. They don't attach themselves to these two because that's where they've come from. So in order to fight that stigma, they want to attach themselves to the hipster or to the road rap. And the problem with this is that they try too hard. It's not natural to them. They're 38 years old, grew up on Kane and Rakim. There's nothing about the musical choice that the hipsters or the road rap fans are listening to that relates to in any different way whatsoever. It's the old school fan. So this brings me to my last category. Now this one is slightly UK specific. US watchers, bear with us. And this one is the ex-grime fan. Now the ex-grime fan is the guy that got into hip-hop music through Dizzy or Kano verging into the rap category. You know, as far as the US artists are concerned, they probably got into hip-hop music around the time of Dipset, D Block, possibly even later Jay-Z. But more time, Dipset is definitely their point of reference as far as when hip-hop started. They don't like Nas, they don't like anything old school, not because they don't appreciate it, because they weren't part of it, they didn't get it, it doesn't make any sense to them, they don't really acknowledge it as being important to the culture. That's fine, they got into it later on. Now, the ex-grime fan has more than likely moved on to one of these two categories. He's either moved on to become a hipster, or he's moved on to become a road rap fan. It's a natural progression from getting into hip hop in the era of Dipset and D Block, moving into road rap. Although having said that, grime in itself garnered a lot of the hipster world in its later stages, so it's natural for the ex-grime fan to move on to become a fan of hipster rap. Okay, so how do the artists, the hip hop fans of any of these 6 categories, how do they link together? Well, let's look at it from the top. So let's think of one of the biggest, quote-unquote hipster artists of recent years. A$AP Rocky would have been probably the poster boy for that world. So if we say A$AP under here, now ASAP is also more recently been favorited by the road and the street and the trap rap fans. So ASAP kind of equates over here. He's not quite on the same level of street music as the Big Mills and the MMGs, which is the favorite over here. But he definitely bridges that gap between hipster and street. Also artists like, say, the Juicy J's, and even your Trinidad James. Again, because these are artists that the hipster world caught onto, the street artists caught onto, now the hipster world don't like them anymore, but it still creates that link. Obviously, the ex-grime fans being massive fans of Dipset, that kind of links them over here as well to the street rap fans. Now you got artists like Kendrick Lamar, he kind of is thrown into this hipster world. But it's still considered very conscious. So you've got the hipster, the ASAP fans, the embrace Kendrick. You've also got the conscious fans, the vegan, soy milk drinking, only wearing organic clothes type of fans down here that would appreciate Kendrick. So he kind of bridges that gap. Now in between the conscious and the underground category, you've got the artists like Kweli and Mos Def. They're appreciated by both. Both of which also having an old school sensibility, which links them up here as well. So you've got an artist now like Nas, who bridges that gap. He obviously comes from the old school, bridges that back to conscious. Generally, you won't see much of a bridge from old school to street rap, but as people are getting older, what people consider as old school is not necessarily what, my generation or the generation of what people consider old school. So you might have an artist now, like DMX or Nori, which is still very much part of the street rap world, that come from an old school background, having been in the game 15 years or so. To bridge the road in street rap, you're gonna have artists that essentially are street rap, but still liked by the underground fans, because the underground fans like to like things that nobody else is up on. So a lot of the time, even though they might verge on the conscious side of things, as far as their sensibilities, if something is underground, they're still going to embrace it, even though essentially they're making exactly the same music as the street/rap fans. So we're going to look at artists like Vado here. Vado is essentially a street rapper. The underground embrace him because he hasn't got the same notoriety as the MMGs and the other artists within that category. We've also got a couple of artists that might kind of float around here, kind of linking the underground, street rap and the hipster rap all together. So the artists like Flatbush Zombies, who essentially are still very underground, are liked by the hipsters. They've come up through that kind of ASAP cosign or whatever, but also make rap that is essentially quite street. So they kind of float around there. Oh, as well, KRS-One is another perfect example of an old school rapper who bridges that gap between conscious music there. Now where it is quite hard to find the link is between the ex-grime fan and the old school, generally because like I said, the ex-grime fan pretty much has no knowledge of old school hip hop music. If you want to link the ex-grime fan now to the hipster, we're going to talk about artists who have embraced the double time flow. So currently I would say you're looking at artists like Lil Wayne, possibly Big Sean. I've definitely linked the ex-grime fan to the hipster. Now, if you want to talk about old school to hipster, generally you're going to go back to the old school southern stuff. So artists like 3 6 Mafia are definitely where the hipster cites their old school influence from. Possibly still Dipset as well. So there you have it, people. That's my interpretation of hip hop tribes. 6 different social groups within the culture. You might agree, you might not. Hit me up at DJ Snips, hashtag hip hop tribes, leave a comment underneath. But before I go, if you're thinking, so what if I don't fit into any of those groups? Like where do I fit in? Or maybe you fit right in the middle of all of them. And you're asking yourself the question of like, who do you listen to if you're just a hip hop fan and you don't really attach yourselves to any of the above groups? Well, that's simple. Sean Price.
Yeah, all I need is one mic like Nas, one knife like John Rambo. Y'all niggas can't handle the guard. Sean Price will dismantle your squad. You was a group, now it's yeah. Break up, make up, break up again. Bottom line, y'all the fakest of friends. You just mad that you taking the bus and he taking the Benz. He like,